Sandusky, WRRO, Eden Bryan, WFOT, Lexington Mansfield, and WSHB Willard.
Welcome to Annunciation Radio's Faith with Reasons, the program that examines what the church teaches and why. Faith with Reasons.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Faith with Reasons. Ron and Shayne here, Ron Finn and Shayne Stanfield on this 24th day of April. Shayne, how are you today?
I'm doing real well myself. How about you, Ron? I hear you're on the mend.
Yeah, I had a little surgery and just kind of laying around the house for the week, but yeah, doing fine. Thank you very much. And
you sound good long distance.
Good. Well, it's good to be doing the morning show this week, and of course Faith with Reasons as well. Can't miss it when we have an esteemed guest like Matthew Archbold on. We don't get to speak to him at length. Generally for 5-6 minutes at a time on Thursday mornings when we find out what's on the mind of Matthew Archbold on Morning Offering. But it's always good to have him on for the entire hour in the 4 o'clock hour for Faith with Reasons. So can't wait to get into a scintillating conversation. See, I always use big words whenever Matthew Archbold's on. Whenever I have a famous author on, I like to be a little smarter than I usually am. Good morning. Good afternoon, Matt. How are you?
I'm an infamous author, I think, more than famous.
Oh, infamous. Yes, there you go.
Yes, that's right.
Well, of course, you've been writing for most of your life, probably all of your adult life, between writing columns and blogs and books, and probably little notes and everything. I would imagine there's a lot of your written material all around the house, and of course, you can find some wonderful books that you have penned, like American Antigone, which is available now, and that's a wonderful pro-life novel. And your earlier book, Faith Under Fire, Dramatic Stories of Christian Courage, which I've been urging Matt to do another edition of that, to share some more stories, real, true life stories about some Christians that have been under fire for their faith and have triumphed, or at least stood firm. And of course, your CreativeMinorityReport.com website, where your blogs are posted and updated all the time, keep us all informed on the zaniness, the nuttiness, and sometimes the craziness that's taking place just in the world around us. So, first of all, thanks for all your huge body of work.
Oh, yeah. I love doing it. I remember years ago when you and I first started talking, and you were talking about the show, and you were saying, one of the things you wanted to do, you wanted to talk about current things. You wanted to, talk about what was going on in the world. And I remember, I think you made the joke at the time, like, I really hope there's enough going on that we have enough to talk about every week. And then the last 10 years have happened.
Yeah.
There is no shortage of things to talk about in this world, is there?
Boy, that's for sure, especially on college campuses, especially Ivy League colleges all around the nation.
It is insane. Right now we have Jewish students being blocked from entering Yale and Columbia and NYU. They're literally being blocked. Students are holding hands across entranceways and disallowing their entrance into classrooms. And, if you look back almost 100 years now, you can find so many photos of, young Nazis doing the same to Jews.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. But the thing is, it's not just the Jewish people. It really is just who they're picking at that moment. When you look at this from a Christian perspective, I mean, Jews have been persecuted throughout time, and we should always stand up for them. But it's everybody that gets in the way of this secular left machine. A couple of years ago, it was the unvaccinated. Leave them to die. If they get sick, don't let them in the hospital. Stuff like that. And you see it with pro-life clinics getting bombed. we're not even going to look into who did it. Churches getting vandalized, who cares? It really is just, it's a matter of who are you going to other? Who is getting dehumanized in the moment? And that is, it just seems to be whenever there's going to be a mass sin against another people, the dehumanization comes first. And that's the great bulwark of Christianity. It doesn't allow you to do that. Christianity instructs us, mandates us that we love our neighbor, and it just doesn't allow us to do that. And that's why, as we take away all the building blocks of our culture, we strip it of, we call ourselves a post-Christian society now, and hope that would have no effect on what's going on. That's just silly. Of course it's going to have an effect. Even Richard Dawkins, the famous or infamous atheist, has said, he kind of likes living in a Christian society. He found it quite nice. It's like, okay, but you want the fruits of Christianity, but not the orchard. Mm-hmm. And that's a really big deal. And that's what we're doing. We're burning the orchard, and we still want the fruits, but that's not how it works.
So what is this this movement now? It seems to be very organized, and as Ron pointed out, pretty much cross country. Have you seen evidence, even on your own, or something that's been reported through the non-mainstream news that there is some sort of a systematic funding or organized funding for these groups? Because this can't be grassroots. I mean, this seems to be very, very systematic.
It's funny you said that. I literally just watched about 10 minutes before I got on this video, and it I don't know what it is. I'm a sick man, but the humorous thing always jumps out at me for some reason, and I look to the humorous, and it's not humorous, but it is sort of. Someone with a phone went up to these two young women who were screaming at NYU for Palestine, and they were blocking the entrance. They were, very much in the protest. And someone came up to them and just asked the one girl, "What are you protesting here?" And she literally got a blank look in her eye, looked at her friend and said, "What are we protesting here again?"
Wow.
And the other girl smiled and says, "I wish I were better informed." And they just kind of smiled shyly. But then they went right back to screaming for Palestine. And, this is not a grassroots thing. These people are being ordered to go here and quite likely paid to go there. But they didn't even know what they were protesting. They had no idea. So it does show you that there is something under our feet rising to the surface. This is not just a grassroots movement.
Well, whomever or whatever is behind this is pretty smart, because the college students always have their hand out. They're always looking way to make money. maybe it's weekend party money or something, but they're always willing to work. So if they are being paid, then this is where they would go.
Yeah, I said to my wife the other day, when we were looking at pictures of the protests going on, the anti-Jewish protests, and, they're yelling and screaming hateful things. And I said to my wife, well, I'm just glad they don't have student loans to worry about anymore, that we could take care of that for them. At least they don't have that on their mind.
That's right. All the pressure, my goodness.
Yeah.
And obviously, college, some kids get to college and, they find the protest wing. There's no shortage of any sort of, activism that you can get involved in if you so choose, and to mobilize all these people and to really have a university like Columbia negotiate with them on these terms is ridiculous in and of itself.
It is, and and the fact that Columbia, NYU, and some of the other Ivy League, the administrations are not doing anything about this. They're just, the inmates are literally running the asylum at this point. And, a little closer to home for us, a number of administration and staff and students wrote a letter saying at Providence College, a Catholic college up in Rhode Island, that, they think LGBT flags should be shown more, a lot more acceptance. There should be an LGBT group and more diversity, administrators, and all sorts of stuff like that. And the college has been resisting it. But just this week, the college, I believe they fired their provost over this. So, that's a very worrisome sign, that the college is kind of bending over and saying, we're going to give it all away. But, when we see stuff like that happening, when Catholic colleges are kowtowing to the modern lunacy, that's a real problem. About 15 years ago, I used to say, and I used to write all the time, don't worry, we're the only ones having babies. So in the end, we're going to win. We're just going to outnumber them. But I forgot. I didn't realize, because all my kids were in grammar school at that point, and I only know what I know at the time. But that, what we're doing, though, is we're sending our kids to these crazy people, and they're twisting their minds, into joining this stuff. So you have a lot of kids who were good kids when they went to college, but they're getting twisted and turned to hate what their parents told them, and they're getting and they're joining things like this. So we have to be careful where we send our kids, because they can turn on us, and tragically they can turn on God, and that's the ultimate parent heartbreak, isn't it?
Absolutely. And of course, as the parents of college-age kids, you've got one in college, right, and one that's going to college pretty soon here. What kind of kitchen table discussions are you and your wife having, and your kids?
It is. It's really intense. It's a lot, and you question everything. When I get a paperback and I see something, and then I ask a question. I see a point of view maybe burgeoning. You know what I mean? And that I worry about. But then you have to worry about, do I take this on, straight ahead? Do I kind of sidewide around this conversation? And I'm not good at subtlety. I kind of come in, and I remember my daughter wrote a philosophy paper, and it was all about children. And I said, this is a great point of view. And it was all about the economics of having children, none of the, love and faith. And I said, this would be a great article if it were written by the devil. And, that maybe wasn't the most subtle way to go about it in hindsight. So that text got shared among all the children for a while, saying, that's Dad for you, But it is literally the paramount thought on my mind at all times. That's what it is. And and I think as our kids get older, the reason we go to daily mass is because our kids don't listen to us anymore. So we have to take it to a higher authority. That's why you get all these old people in daily mass, because they're praying for their stupid kids who don't listen to them anymore.
Well, hopefully that will not be the case with the Archbold kids.
I hope.
So
from your mouth to God's ears.
So you mentioned that there was a Catholic university that was promoting these LGBTQ, whatever the letters are anymore. And you really, as a parent, you're not necessarily safe by choosing to send your kids or hoping that your kids go to a Catholic university, because there's more and more that are doing this. You had written something about this Dylan Mulvaney that was actually invited to speak at one of these universities. What was that about?
Yes, St. Louis University. I believe it's a Jesuit university, and they've had a campus group invite Dylan Mulvaney, who was a man pretending to be a woman, and pretending to be a woman in the most broad, offensive sense.
Yes.
It's just it's such an insult to young women.
Yep.
And it's so histrionic and flamboyant. It's just ridiculous. And but they're inviting them, and they're saying, when asked about it, they're saying that the faith tells us to be inclusive and tolerant and kind. And but the thing is, how confusing is that?
Yeah.
all these young people who are trying to live a life of faithfulness. It is so confusing when the adults and even priests are telling them that a man becoming a woman is perfectly normal, and you should be tolerant and kind. Of course, we should be kind and nice, but loving also has responsibilities.
Yeah,
and that's to warn people when they're doing wrong.
yes,
and they're going down a dark path. If someone you love is running towards a cliff, you yell and warn them. You don't be a pastoral. That whole thing. I'm going to accompany them. No, you tell them to stop. Accompanying someone to the end of the cliff is not love.
Well, it's in my opinion, I think that just inviting them is promoting what they're doing. Of course, they're promoting themselves, and that's more or less affirming their beliefs. And again, this is more. I would think it should be. I shouldn't say. I mean, it seems to me common sense that it should be considered more of a mental illness than anything else, and you wouldn't necessarily affirm somebody in that.
Right. When you believe something that is not true, that is not real, it used to be considered that's a mental illness.
Yeah, some sort of a disorder. Mm-hmm.
Right. And and for years that's exactly what it was. But for some reason now, and it all goes back to godlessness. Because once you have no God, it goes back to the question of Pilate. What is truth?
Yes.
There is no truth. Without an objective God, there is no truth. It's all subjective. So that's what it goes down to here. Without God, you can reinvent yourself because you were never created. You just blipped into existence. You happenstance. You're a consequence of some mechanical thing that happened on a desolate rock hurtling through space. Who cares? But that's not what happened. The world was created as an act of love by a forgiving Creator, and thank God for that.
Well, it just seems to me that there's many, especially it affects young women who are suffering from eating disorders, and if they believe in their mind, which is still praise God, is considered a mental disorder that people try to treat because it's destructive to the body. But you don't affirm that they're fat. They may think in their mind that that they're overweight, and they do whatever they need to do to stay very unhealthy and thin. But you don't affirm something like that. And it seems to me that you wouldn't be affirming somebody that you have a man that believes that they're a woman, or a woman that believes that they're a man. It's a very destructive state.
Yeah, that's a great argument. That really hits it home. Of course, you wouldn't do that, but they are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And study after study has shown that you're not improving these folks' chances of at having a happy life by doing all this these surgeries and these hormone blockers and all these terrible, ghastly things to them. You're not helping them in the long run achieve any kind of joy or happiness. But that's not the goal. The goal was never about them, and it's never about them. It's virtue signaling, and you know what it is? It's slam dunking on Christianity. That really, for many of them, that is truly what it is. Because they know that this is one of the last battles that have to be fought to eradicate Christianity, to eradicate objective truth from the culture. And once they do this, they'll have achieved a great victory. But thankfully, there is some pushback to all this. And, for some reason, a lot of it is not coming from adults. A lot of it is coming from children who are pushing back on this. There was a grammar school in Utah, or a middle school, I forget which, but they walked out in protest of other students considering themselves furries. So they're animals, and they've been biting and scratching other kids. And these kids all staged a walkout. Not the adults. The adults aren't doing much, but the kids are finally doing it. And then a number of girls who throw shot put. My daughter threw shot put for a while at Catholic University. But, a number of girls who throw shot put refused to throw against a young man who was pretending to be a woman. And that's what we need. You were talking earlier about, my book, Faith Under Fire, Profiles in Christian Courage. And that is what we need now. We need courage more than anything else. And that's who the church has always needed at dark times. People of courage to stand up for the faith and suffer the arrows of the culture. But that's going to happen, and you're going to have to suffer the consequences right now, because we don't have the power in the culture right now. And if you stand up for it, you're going to suffer consequences. But thank God we have many brave people who are willing to do it.
Amen. Matthew Archbold, our guest on Faith with Reasons here on Annunciation Radio. And Matthew, you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about, as soon as you get God out of the picture, then you're free to call truth whatever you want to call truth at that particular moment, and then change your mind later on. Not a new problem, obviously. This has been going on since the beginning of time and will continue to go on. But it just seems, we always feel like we're in the worst of times. When we look back, we probably discover that it's not the worst of times, but it's just more of the same. It's a continuation of the result of pushing God out of culture.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. In that, it's amazing how relevant the Bible always is. From the time when God showed up and Adam blamed his shortcoming on Eve, it's all so relevant, because that's exactly what I would do if I got in trouble with God. I'd point to my wife. That's totally her fault. What did I do?
Works for me.
Right. I'm gonna at least try that. You never know. But that's the thing about the Bible. It's truth. The truth doesn't go away. It doesn't change, and it really shows you that human beings haven't changed either. What was it the serpent did? He called, good evil and evil good, and that's exactly what we're doing now. I think the reason a lot of people think that it is, we're living in the worst time now, is because it is the prevalent culture right now that's being pushed on us, is to call good evil and evil good. And I think, what is a woman? Oh, we don't know what a woman is. You can't say. Okay, well, what is a human? Oh, well, we don't know when the baby is human. And all that just, it really adds up. And it just, we're just on unsteady ground. They always talk about building the foundation on solid grounds. Well, we're not. We're building on sand. And it will fall. There's no doubt about it. It will fall. And, we keep warning that it will fall. And, but we're going to have to be the ones that lay the foundation again when this does fall, because it's going to. And I pray that we'll be able to do it and not put that responsibility on our children.
Amen.
Yeah, the more we just kind of stand by and watch it go by and not engage, the more we further this activity. As soon as you say, sometimes you have to pay a relatively small price for standing up for what's right and what's true and what's good. Yes, there's going to be pushback, but it's also going to let others know that, hey, I guess I'm not the only one that feels this way. Maybe I should speak up too. We need to kind of advance our voices, so to speak.
And I've made this joke with you in the past, because with the kids, I am constantly on the sidelines of games and, out on the field or whatnot. And I can't tell you how many times people, dads and moms, have come up to me and said, hey, I just read some of the things you wrote. And then they lean in and just say, just want you to know, I agree with you. And then I always say, why are we whispering them?
Yeah.
But there is a certain amount of intimidation. People feel this, particularly. I mean, these last few years have just been awful when it comes to the cancel culture. And I think the more that people become entrenched in social media, there's quite a concern that that they themselves will end up being canceled. And we shouldn't be frightened of that sort of thing. But I think a lot of people rely on their connections or their notoriety, whatever that might be, to as part of their income, perhaps. And this is very intimidating for people. But if we don't take a stand, if we remain silent, then we're actually aiding and abetting this movement.
And that's the thing. And sometimes in my writings, I'll try to get into this. We can be so twisted by what we love into doing evil. I love my kids, right? So I can't lose my job, because I love my kids. I want to get my kids into a good college.
Yeah.
I can't lose my job. I can't get in trouble with human resources right now, so when they tell me to put this rainbow flag on my desk, I'm going to do it because I love my kids. You see what it does? They take that love that is supposed to come, through God, from you to your children through God. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But what they do is they remove God out of it. So now my love for my child is actually going to remove me from God, and that's the trick of the devil. I read a thing recently where they said where it was posited that the guy who turned in Anne Frank and that family was a family man who was trying to protect his own family by turning in the Franks.
Wow.
Okay? Now you see that. He did that as an act of love to protect his family. But it's the most evil thing you can do. Because love, without being properly ordered, which really goes into a lot, doesn't it? Without being properly ordered, it can make us look sideways and get us into all sorts of trouble. Love has to come through God, or else it's disordered.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely, and it's the self-sacrifice at some point. You mentioned kids, but another thing is people fear losing their comfort. They've worked so hard for the
right.
home that they have, or the number of cars, or the luxuries that they have in their life. Maybe the ease at the job. They've worked their way up the ladder. They don't want to give up that position. And that's really a small sacrifice when it comes to true love, because if you're not standing up for your faith, you're not willing to speak out when you should be speaking out, it really could cost you in the end.
Yeah. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Amen.
Right? And that's what it comes down to.
Amen. All right, that music tells us that we've got a hard break here. Matt Archbold joining us on Faith with Reasons, and we're going to take a little break. We will come right back and continue this discussion. Please stick around.
Join millions of mothers as we pray for loved ones who have left the practice of our Catholic faith. Millions of Monicas is not a support group but a prayer group. Join us at Christ the King Toledo the first and third Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. Learn more at millionsofmonicas.com or at millionsofmonicas@cktoledo.org.
Yesterday, today, and forever. Hi, everyone. This is Bishop Daniel Thomas of the Diocese of Toledo, and this is the theme for our 2024 Annual Catholic Appeal, reflecting the Diocese of Toledo's participation in the National Eucharistic Revival, because Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The Holy Eucharist strengthens and challenges us to follow his command to love our neighbors and to become the body of Christ for all who are in need and for all throughout our diocese. Folks, by making your donation to our annual Catholic Appeal, you help provide food, clothing, shelter, counseling for those in need, education and support for our clergy, resources for so many in our parishes and schools, and so much more. Thanks so much for your generosity as we celebrate Jesus yesterday, today, and forever.
Experience the incredible story of the woman who Time magazine named the most influential Catholic woman in the United States. Born Rita Rizzo, the future mother Angelica grew up in a rough neighborhood in Canton, Ohio. Young Rita experienced abandonment, rejection, and heartache, but God touched her through a woman named Rhoda Wise. Encounter this amazing woman at the Mother Angelica Museum. Plan your visit today at motherangelicamuseum.com.
Now, back to Faith with Reasons here on Annunciation Radio.
Hey, welcome back here. Shayne Stanfield with Ron Finn, and today we are blessed to have Matthew Archbold, a regular guest on our Thursday morning edition of Morning Offering. He's author, blogger, columnist, and Catholic father of 5. Also an award-winning journalist who's heard every Thursday on Annunciation Radio, Morning Offering program. Also author of best-selling pro-life novel, American Antigone, and also Faith Under Fire, Dramatic Stories of Christian Courage.
And can I add, he's a heck of a cornhole player.
Oh, hey, I didn't know this. We'll have to get to that. So he's also a creator of the web resource Creative Minority Report, which we have to plug because if you haven't been there, please to go there. Once again, creativeminorityReport.com, where Matthew just spotlights current topics and news stories, certainly including his sense of humor in these somewhat ghastly or even horrific news stories. There's a lot going on in the world today, which is what we've been discussing this last half hour. And man, I just wanted to take you to a story of last week that I think that was pretty shocking as far as I'm concerned, but you know, it ties with what we were discussing. We opened up the show, of course, talking about the Jewish students being blocked from these Ivy League schools, and this is taking place almost systematically across the country. The backlash for the Jewish people, of course, what's going on in the Middle East today, and this was a stabbing of a bishop in Sydney. And it was rather horrific. But you know, you brought up a point in the last half hour. You know, people think, okay, well, that's, you know, we can understand it's the Jewish folks being attacked because of the war that's going on. But you know, there is attack against religion in general, and Christianity is also a target. I would point out, I just heard there was the 240th church, 40-some church. That's been attacked since the fall of Roe v. Wade, and I think that was a Catholic church in, help me out here, I think it was in the Midwest here, but they toppled a couple of statues and done some horrific things there. So Christianity, of course, is under attack, and the stabbing of the bishop was horrific. So maybe we can start there.
It is horrific, and it's just a symptom, though, of the times that we're living in. And, you know, it's happening all over. There was a church in France that burned to the ground. And once again, you know, the media reports, while it's still burning, that it was just faulty wiring or something like that. It's just, even though they have no way of knowing that. But, you know, we have to be managed. We can't just be told the truth and trusted with facts. You know, so, but this is going on all over the place. You know, there's no question that Christians have been othered. You know, we even have this term now. Honest to goodness, I have no idea what it even means. Christian nationalist. Mm-hmm. You know, that seems to be the thing we're being tarred with now. You know, it used to be we were deplorable. Then, you know, we were fundamentalist. I remember that one. That was a big one for a while. I still don't know what that means. As close as I could come, it's someone who actually believes, you know, who actually really believes this stuff. You know, that's what a fundamentalist is. But now it's a Christian nationalist, which, once again, I have no idea what that actually means. Mm-hmm. I mean, you know, are my politics informed by my faith? You betcha. Of course they are. Everything I do is informed by my faith. Mm-hmm. Me being a father, me being a citizen, me being a husband is informed by my faith. And it's better because of it. And, you know, but then there's clearly people who don't think your faith should play any role. I mean, what was it that senator said to Amy Coney Barrett? You know, the dogma lives loudly within you, and that was a concern to her. that should have sent up some warning signals to us that Christianity is no longer allowed here, and this is going to get uglier and uglier until we're willing to stand up. I can tell you, so many people I know will say to me, before they press even a post on Facebook or Twitter, they think twice, because they think to themselves, if I post this about praying, or if I post this about something about my spiritual life, I'm going to lose friends over this.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't. And they think to themselves, I'm being nice by not doing it. No. You're not. We're not called to be nice. Yeah. We're called to love. That is a whole different thing rather than being nice. I've seen, I read a story once, and I think it was nonfiction, but either way, it illustrates the point. Was this Jewish woman was walking along the street towards the trains, and she dropped something, and this young Nazi right away bent down, picked it up, and handed it back to her. And she thought to herself, "Oh, how nice!" Like, yes, but look at what's going on here. Nice and loving, nice and good are two different things. And the truth is, faith without courage is useless. It truly is.
It's emotion.
It's useless. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's something you're feeling, but that's not what we're called. We're called to spread the faith through word, through action. And if we're not doing that, and the thing is, we're hurting ourselves by it. That's the thing in the long run. We're hurting our own joy. We're hurting our own faith life by not sharing it. And to be honest, we're hurting the world by not sharing it, because the only hope the world has is in Jesus Christ.
That's right. And isn't it always true that it's always you kind of pick on the most docile, right? And the ones who are not going to offer much resistance, the ones who are respectful, you can disrespect because they're too respectful to be disrespectful back, right?
Right.
And I mean, you see how this even affects women's sports. Let's pick on the ladies. What are they going to do? You don't see a lot of women trying to join men's basketball teams. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, that's exactly right. But now there's scholarships available. A lot of guys are considering this now. Like, I can go to college for free. Like, yeah. Hey, if I were an unethical basketball coach, that might be redundant, but an unethical basketball coach, I'd consider it. I'd say, hey, I can go right to a national championship. I don't have to build nothing. I'll just hire 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
But and the worst part about this is how few women are standing up against this. And the weird thing, one of the funny things is the bedfellows we have on this issue. And it just seems that I always say there has to be a tipping point on this subjectivity, on the lack of objective truth, and people are starting to realize it. How many times do you see when you mention woke now? A lot of people are rolling their eyes because they feel like they can now. Because you see someone like Riley Gaines, who is a Christian, and talking about doing the right thing. But then you also have J.K. Rowling, who I don't think I would agree with her much on anything political. And J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, she's pushing back against this whole, trans thing.
Yes.
Saying, what is a woman? Martina Navratilova is pushing back against this. So I do feel it's reaching a tipping point. I really just wish Christians would stand up stronger for it. And I appreciate these other folks. And, I'm mentioning J.K. Rowling and Martina Navratilova. I truly hope and pray that this has them looking into it. Okay, why is this offensive? And the more you look into it, the more you'll see that you're searching for truth. And if you're I've always said, if you are truly searching for truth, if you are earnestly searching for truth, you will find Jesus.
Amen.
Jesus is the truth. And that's why we've seen people like Candace Owens recently became a Catholic. Have you seen, like 3 years ago, I started listening to that weird actor, Russell Brand. Do you know him at all?
Yeah.
And 3 years ago, during COVID, I started listening to him. And one of my brothers asked me, what are you listening to that lunatic for? I said, no, he is a lunatic. Like, he truly is a lunatic.
Yeah.
But he's honest. He's searching for truth. And, at that point, he was a leftist on everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I could tell this guy really wants the truth. And now he's strongly considering becoming a Catholic.
Yes.
This is happening. And we're the crazier it gets, the darker it gets. It just takes a little flame, and to show the way, and it'll contrast with the darkness quite well. And so the darker it gets, we just have to be willing to hold up that flame, and people will follow.
Absolutely. We need to speak up. We need to use our voices, and we need to let other people know that, hey, some things are just not okay, and we need to stand up to that. And the more you kind of get fortified by others around you and special events, like, for example, as we come on the air this Wednesday, tomorrow morning, the Catholic Business Network Breakfast, a whole hour on understanding the manipulation behind the woke movement with Noel Mehring, the guest speaker. You're going to go away from events like that, I guess, armed with a new sense of, I can control some of this. I can control the conversation. I don't have to let it dominate me. I can stand up too.
That's exactly right. And, one of the things it's funny, the Catholic Church has gotten slimed with so much in the past. It's like, oh, you're just anti-woman, and then they throw that at us. And then a minute later, they accuse us of worshiping Mary.
Yeah.
I've never been able to really figure out how those two things coincide. We're anti-woman, but we worship Mary. Okay, I got it.
That's so true.
But it just shows the ground shifts under them, and they don't care, because it's just anything they can attack the church with. And I've always said the left knows the enemy is the church. The secularists know that the real enemy is the Catholic Church, because that is the bulwark of truth in this world, because that is the church founded by Christ. And I just wish that Catholics believed that as strongly as the enemies of the church believe it. Because the enemies of the church know that the Catholic Church is the only one that can foil them. But Catholics go about and they mealy mouth it. I don't agree with the church on this. I'll take this. I won't take that. No. That's not one of the options here. If you're going to sup at the table of truth, you're going to have it all.
We mentioned previously this this term now, this Christian nationalism, and not knowing what it means. It's generally speaking, it's not good. But I do believe, and I've heard this opinion shared by many people, that this movement to start considering Christians as Christian nationalists is just another way to go after the typical Christian, because if they can associate them as a threat to the country itself, then it would be easier to go after them, for their faith, go after them for their beliefs. And I believe it's a very, very dangerous time, because of course a faithful Christian is going to be patriotic, but it is not what what they're trying to do with this. It's another way, I think, to take Christians and those that are practicing their faith, take them down.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the amorphousness of the definition is not to them a problem. It's the point. You know, that it can mean so many things to so many people. That's the benefit of just tarring people with Christian nationalists. You know, and that's how we get FBI attending churches.
Yes.
You know,
infiltrating
undercover.
Yeah.
You know, and that's insane to me. What country are we living in? When did this happen? You know, I really thought 10 years ago, I lived in a different country than I did. And I'm glad to know the truth, but I also kind of miss my ignorance a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
But now my eyes have been opened, and I see we are not in the friendly confines. You know, we are in enemy territory much of the time, and that's what we've always been in. You know, that we are always in enemy territory, and you know, thank God that we now have been granted that wisdom again, that now we see it once again. And, you know, this whole Christian nationalist, it's just a way of trying to come up with something that kind of sounds a little bit like Nazis.
Yes.
You know, that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, and the last thing the Nazis were Christians. You
exactly.
know, they hated Christianity. They despised Christians. They hated the Catholic Church. But, you know, it's just, but do you think it's a mistake? Do you think it was an oversight that so many young people are not informed about the truth of National Socialism and the Nazis? Do you think that's a mistake, or do you think maybe that was an intention?
That's very
certainly
purposeful.
By design. Yeah,
very
and
purposeful.
the enemy knows that labels work. As soon as we start labeling each other, that's when you start to change the conversation and steer it in your direction. Look what happened to pro-life. You don't even see that term in any. You know, we're always anti-abortionists, is what we are. We're not pro-life anymore. They keep changing the wording and making the labels that they can stick on people to change the whole conversation.
Yeah, and we're not pro-marriage. We're anti-gay. We're not pro-life. We're anti-abortion. You know, you know, it's just we're not just Christian. We're anti-Muslim. You know, it's just, or Islamophobe, or whatever the latest thing is. You know, none of it will ever go our way. I remember I was a secular reporter when that was being pushed, that pro-life was never to be used except when it was in a quote. And they said, and if it is in a quote, try to paraphrase it so you don't have to use it. That's literally what was said at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we talked about this previously, that speaking out, and even if it's it's going to cost your job, that had to put you in a pickle. Really, I mean, you eventually got out of the business.
I did, and thank goodness I did, because I mean, it really did change me. You know, my wife always says this: you just make the right decision you have in front of you at that moment, and worry about the rest later.
Yeah.
Just make the right decision. Now, I was a little more guilty of always trying to come up with an angle, some way I could thread the needle, you know what I mean? And try to balance myself in both worlds. And finally, it got to a point where I didn't feel like I could. I remember when I first announced that my wife was pregnant with our second, and a senior reporter came over to me, and it was on the weekend, so I was just sitting there listening to the police scanner. That's what you did on Saturdays back then. You literally just listened to the police scanner to see if something jumped, and then you got in your car and you raced over there. And I'm sitting there. This other senior reporter comes and sits down and says, "Oh, I heard your wife was pregnant again." And I said, "Yeah." And then he starts lecturing me on overpopulation.
Oh boy.
And I am so stupid. I literally thought he was kidding. I thought he was making fun of people who would say that.
Wow.
So I'm sitting there, the first 45 seconds of this lecture, I'm sitting there with this stupid grin on my face going, hey, hey, hey. And then I finally realized, no, this guy's being serious.
He's targeting you.
Yeah, so he's looking at me like I'm a crazy person because I'm giggling through this conversation. And then I finally realized it, and then I couldn't help myself because I'm kind of a jerk at heart, and then I told him I'm looking to field a baseball team, and including a couple of pinch hitters, and he didn't like that at all. Sadly, I only had a basketball team, but still, I did my best.
There you go.
I remember so as a secular reporter, I remember I did radio a couple of times on the radio, because there would be a big story in the area, and they would ask the reporter to come on and talk about it. And inevitably, one of the notes would come up and say, "Matt, is it true you have 5 children?" Yep, it is. And, the next 45 seconds would be like, "Oh, my gosh, are you crazy?" And then when I got out of secular reporting altogether and I started writing for Catholic publications, and it literally saved my life, my soul, everything. And I went on Catholic radio, and they said, "How many kids you got, Matt?" And I said, 5. And the host said, "Well, that's a good start."
Yeah.
I was like, I am in a different world, and thank goodness for it.
Oh yeah. It's funny. We were just my wife and I were just making comments about the number of large families that we have at church, and there's one family, I believe they have 6 kids currently, and she's pregnant again. It's just a blessing to see people that they really don't care about what the culture says. So many people are good with 2. Maybe they're happy with 1, or what do they call them? Dinks, dual income, no kids. They're very happy to be just living large on not having kids at all, and climbing corporate ladders as opposed to raising our future.
I tell my first 2 kids all the time, they're essentially my Frankenstein monsters I've unleashed upon the earth. After that, I feel like I started getting good at parenting. I started loosening up a little bit, maybe not micromanaging as much. And, so maybe the last 3 will be pretty good. But yeah, I've learned a lot. I don't think I was all that great on the first 2, but after that, I felt like I really got into my sweet spot.
Yeah, that's why you got to have a lot of kids, really, because it does take a lot just to get the hang of it.
Exactly. So if you ever meet any of my kids, ask them if they were one of my first 2. If it is, just get away. But if it's one of the last 3, invite them in. They'll be fine. They won't steal the silverware. Everything's going to be really fine.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, and obviously the push is on to be a childless society. And just on yesterday, President Biden on the campaign trail calling for a national right to abortion. This Catholic president is so anti-Catholic it isn't funny. And now being on the campaign trail, he's going to say even more outrageous things. And it's really kind of you think these things are just limited to Newsom in California, for example, who's another one, but it seems like it's everywhere, and it's in the national square.
Here's the thing, that nobody's talking about this, that the population is going down.
Yes.
And that is a disaster. Socialism is essentially a Ponzi scheme. It can work as long as the bottom is growing. There's more coming up than there are at the top. Okay? Because if there are more kids and more working people, then they can support fewer and fewer retirees. But we're an inverted pyramid now. We have less young people, and we have a lot of retirees. It literally, economically, it cannot work. We cannot sustain ourselves if we don't have children. But we keep spending and spending and spending and spending these young people's money, but then we're not even having the young people. It cannot continue. And we are well below even a replacement rate. We're not growing, we're shrinking. And, once again, this thing about strange bedfellows, Elon Musk, 8 out of 10 things that this guy says worries the heck out of me and makes me not sleep at night. But he is very, very strong on this underpopulation. He's going against the tide and saying the problem is not overpopulation, it's underpopulation. That people need to start having children, and it's completely true. And I'm just talking about the economics of it. But the truth is, we live in an unhealthy society where people do not believe in themselves. They don't believe in marriage. They don't believe in their country enough to subject a child to it. It tells you that there is a sickness. There's a real sickness. If someone's unwilling to have a child enter the world, how do you see this world? You know, I think that the greatest thing that I can do is have children for this world and spread love and spread the faith. But the darkness of that view, where they don't even want to have children, is so disturbing. And a country and a civilization, a culture, cannot stand like that.
That was one of your latest stories. Once again, creativeminorityReport.com. You wrote about what the Greek prime minister said in reference to his country's population literally collapsing. He considered it was quoted as a national threat and a ticking time bomb.
Right. Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that one.
Yeah.
But it really isn't just Greece. You
Yeah.
know, he was talking about Greece, but it's all of us. This is a ticking time bomb, and once again, so often when you see these economic stories, just relate it back to what you were told by Christ to do: be fruitful and multiply. And you're just like, my goodness, the wisdom is always right. It's always right, and no matter what you're reading, how much you're reading, and then you go back to the Bible and you're like, yeah, this is the solution to all the modern problems. And it's just amazing. And that you can't get enough of this. The more you read and the more you take in the faith, it truly is the answer to the modern problem.
Amen.
It really is, and it's all there. It's in plain view. You don't even have to search very hard. Just kind of tune in and listen to your heart. Now, Matthew, I want to again point people to creativeminority.com, but also to your books, Faith Under Fire and American Antiquity. And I understand you've got another book project in the works. Hopefully, we'll see that very soon too. How's that coming?
I've been working on it, and I'm going to have to bring it to a publisher soon. It's going to be a family-friendly thriller, but very Christian.
Love it.
Can't wait.
Love it. All right. Always a joy to chat with you, Matthew. Glad to have you on for the whole hour, because it's just not enough on Thursday morning, I'm sorry to say. Thanks for joining us on Faith with Reasons today. Join us next week.